Another CRO Wisdom Pod today with Chris Donovan. He is CRO at RevHERO. Chris, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and RevHERO?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Donovan. I am the CRO for RevHERO. Basically, we are a company that automates the sales process pretty highly, from things anywhere from initial outreach to lead gen to outcome-based follow-ups and even stuff post-sale. So we're a big name coming up in the tech space.
Love it. You have an eclectic background, to say the least. So tell us a bit more about it. Started as a janitor, then you went into the army as an helicopter mechanic. Tell us about the insights you've learned from your time there.
Yeah, definitely. So, like you said, I've done a lot of weird things. I've done everything from being a janitor when I was in my high school, middle school age, to working at McDonald's, working on a farm. I've worked as a pizza guy. I've been a server, bartender, waiter, bouncer, you name it. I've pretty much done it all. And then when I turned 18, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I decided college wasn't the correct choice off the rip. So I enlisted in the military, have a very military family background. Um, Went in and didn't know again what I wanted to do. So I took the aptitude test, scored pretty highly, and the first person offered me a nuclear submarine as a job, which sounded horrible. I had no interest in that. So I decided to go aviation just because it sounded interesting, it sounded challenging. Coincidentally, it's the thing I scored the least in. So I really just wanted to challenge myself and my horizons. And I did that for about 8 years, did school part-time while I was there as well. And it kind of forced me into sales after a long journey.
Yeah, so somewhat similar backgrounds. I did all sorts of jobs, but not that eclectic, bouncer. That's quite interesting. I also stumbled upon sales as my first professional job, and I was quite really happy about it because it was the first serious thing that I had, and I still remember hitting up the phone with 200 calls a day. Yeah, last time we spoke about your background, your family traveled a lot for the military. You went to Iraq, if I'm not mistaken, or was it Afghanistan?
It was Iraq, yes.
Iraq. How was your stay there, and what lessons did you learn from your time there?
Yeah. So first, when I've traveled a little bit in my day, and in 2016 we went to Iraq. Went to Camp Taji, Iraq. I spent about 8 months on base, and then I spent about 3 months in the country just south, Kuwait, Camp Beer in Kuwait. The lessons I learned from there was that, for one, I wasn't really into the military. I liked it. I had fun. I loved the people. But it just wasn't something I wanted my career to be, longevity wise. I kind of always question things, whether it's politically, religiously, personally, whatever. So I have some moral ambiguity being overseas. Part of the reason I chose to be in aviation, and specifically a medical evacuation unit, was that I don't, and I never wanted to hurt anyone. I prefer to be on the helping end of things. So that's actually what started my interest in medicine, and that's why I went to school to be a doctor, which is when I found sales, kind of similar to you, and entered my journey in the professional background.
So, what was your first sales job? What did you do exactly?
So you could kind of say my first sales job was serving, right? Because I'm upselling drinks, I'm doing things of that nature. So that's how I learned how to sell and how to talk to people, by and large. The first professional sales job I had, though, was for a company called Creative 813. It was actually owned by my current business partner, Zach. And essentially, we sold websites and different digital marketing agency based products.
Interesting. Yeah, we have like very, very similar backgrounds. I also did that, and yeah, before that, I had to hit the phone calls for like quite a while, that couple months, 200 calls a day, before I became a CMO of an agency and literally co-founded an agency with my first mentor. So easy business, quote unquote. Everyone needs a website or campaigns or just more sales. So how did you generated your first sales? Did you hit the phone too, or was it LinkedIn outreach, or was it email?
So it's really funny that you kind of mentioned that you started the business with your mentor, because I mean, quite similarly, my business partner, Zach, while we're the same age, he's a serial entrepreneur. So he had a mentor like relationship with me. So very, very similar in that regard. And like you said as well, first it was hitting the phones, right? Hitting phones 200 dials a day, sending lots of cold emails out there. And I was doing this while balancing school. So this thing we were doing, just cold calling, wasting so much time, is kind of the catalyst to why we built RevHERO, because we wanted to automate the process. So when I started is when we started building out automations, which was partly LinkedIn, partly cold calling, partly cold outreach, and that led to the formation of my current company.
So let's talk about sales automation, which is one of my favorite topics out there. I use Apollo. I go multi-touch, so with cold email, LinkedIn. I restarted recently doing some calls again. It felt quite odd, and I'm doing some calls to attract people to my podcast. So especially prominent guests that would normally not convert into an email. How are you automating sales nowadays, and for who? What type of business?
Great question. So our process really works for anybody that sells to other businesses. So we're very primarily B2B. Our current focus is going to be in the small SMBs in the mid market, because we solved an issue for ourselves as a solo entrepreneur or a small team. So we set to work with solo entrepreneurs that wear many hats. You do marketing, you do sales, you're HR, you do everything. So the part of the sales process that we automate is we automate LinkedIn accounts to do outreach and connect you with individuals. Once that connection request is made, our system scrubs that person for their contact information, uploads it to our system, and then from there, it's a cadence of emails, text messages, LinkedIn messages, and voicemail drops that are all personalized and go out on your behalf.
Right. So is it mostly software, or do you also offer the agency service nowadays?
No, we're primarily a SaaS product. So we actually just sold Creative 813, or are pending a sale right now. We have some offers being floated, but yeah, we are strictly a SaaS product going forward.
Nice. So okay, what type of businesses use your software? Is it mostly tech or SaaS companies, or it's pretty much anyone? And what's the price tag on that?
Yeah, so it's a kind of across the board. So initially, because we made this for ourselves when we were a digital marketing agency, our primary customers were fellow digital marketers. From there, we branched off, and we have a lot of managed IT services. iHeartMedia is one of our clients. A couple other verticals, like anyone that's selling a service to other businesses, that's our target market.
Right. Yeah, the software is quite interesting. So voicemail drop, SMS, some calls, LinkedIn outreach, and so forth. Um, do you, what do you advise people other than the tech stack part? What's important to be successful out there? Is it to test various niches? Is it the offers? Is it the copywriting? Any advice on that?
I mean, as you know, it's kind of all of those things, right? It's a little bit of everything. One of the things we struggle with some people is that they write copy once and they think that copy is going to be it's all they need forever. And that's not the case. You need to A/B test. You need to check if this niche is the appropriate niche for you. Is your offering good? Does your website suck? Why aren't things, converting? So when I talk to people, I tell them, listen, don't ever expect a band-aid solution to fix everything forever. Things are going to break, things are going to change. You need to continue to evolve with your product or with your business, and make adjustments over the course of, let's say, a couple months, because you'll be able to hone in and find the correct target market, the correct demographics, and then be better at pitching those individuals.
Right. As the CRO yourself, like how do you segment your campaigns? How many meetings do you book on a weekly basis? And do you manage a team of people that do calls? Do you do calls yourself? Tell us a bit more about the strategy you're hitting right now.
Right. So I used to do a lot of phone calls when it was just me. And I kind of figured that the juice isn't really worth the squeeze. It's not worth my time to sit there and make 300 phone calls when I have so many other things to do. So I primarily spend most of my time taking meetings. On average, I have about 12 to 20 meetings a week. That's typically the average span of that. They're about 45 minutes long, and it's a discovery call / demo right there. It's a very straightforward process. The people I do manage currently, All they do is they are customer success agents. So they're dealing with the clients that I bring in and ensuring that their campaigns are working appropriately, suggesting upsells, things of that nature. We are looking to hire a second sales rep in the short. Primarily, I want my calendar to be so inundated that there's overflow, and then we can both take meetings and then continue to scale from there.
How long are your demo calls? Are they 30 minutes and you can stack up, let's say, 5 a day?
They're 45 minutes long. They typically run to an hour because after the 30 minutes of demo and questioning, everyone always asks questions. They ask, what if this, what if that? And then it typically is 45 to an hour.
Right. And what objections do you get typically?
So the funniest thing is we don't get a lot of objections. It's people saying, wow, I really like this. This makes a lot of sense. And it's a system that kind of sells itself because the meetings that I have set, it's not for marketing. We don't really do a whole lot of marketing right now. Our funds are allocated for other more important things. So all of our leads are self-generated via our system. So when people get on the meeting, it's a really easy sell because all you say is, do you want proof that this works? We're having a conversation right now. This is the proof that it works.
Yeah, proofs in the pudding. What do you say to folks that use Apollo, for example? The business got like 200 million in funding or more, and they're eating up Zoom Info, their market shares like every day. How would you compare your platform to that, or make sure that you have some features that are still interesting? How do you stay competitive against like hyper-funded businesses like that?
It's a great question, right? Because there's a lot of people watching this podcast and that you interview that are struggling with competing with these big contenders. Primarily, the way we can compete with them is that most of these solutions people are selling, it's something that they built to sell. Whereas my solution is something that we built to solve our own problems. It was never meant to be a product, and that's why I think we're so successful because we wanted it to work for us first. And then people started asking us, what are you using for this? How does this work? How are you guys doing this? Once we told them, they wanted to try it. So everything's been organic, and that's a big primary factor. So there's organic desire. But aside from that, it's to never quit, right? You can't, as you've done 200 cold calls a day, you got to just stay on top of it. Don't take no for an answer and just keep your nose to the grindstone.
You compete on features, on pricing as well, because Apollo, I mean, they're somewhat slow to deploy new features. I think right now they're priced at $80 a month. Like, how do you distinguish yourself from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of our competitors and what most people ask us toward the end of the demo for hesitations and objections, they ask, what's the difference between you and Apollo, you and MailChimp, you and insert any one of these things? The reality is a lot of these products and services out there, they do one thing very, very well, and that's emails, SMS, LinkedIn, whatever. We do all of it. We combine it under one roof. We're not using several third parties. It's one software, and it's incredibly simple to use. That's the primary competitive edge there. And because of that, we can get these kind of low-hanging fruit, smaller businesses and build them an entire sales process. Because that's the biggest thing. A lot of my clients, the thing I hear the most is this. I started a business. I had some success at first. Then they referred me to people, friends and family. But eventually those wells dry up. And that's when you need to start doing cold outreach and other factors. So they don't have a sales process in place. They're kind of just going with the strokes and trying to build it without a base. So we give people that base to be able to build from there.
How complicated is it to build your own sales SaaS like this? How many engineers? What's the requirement of funding if I want to bootstrap it? Any idea on that?
Yeah, I got some ideas on that. So we use about 8 engineers currently. Just a fun little tidbit here. Every time we were 2 weeks away from our 2.0 launch, one of the engineers, the lead engineer, he was injured. He got into an accident, so that delayed this. And then somebody got sick, and that delayed it 2 more weeks. So it's definitely frustrating, but that's any business. You're going to have moments of banging your head on a wall. So 8 developers, and they've been great for the most part, just aside from the onesie twosie things. And as far as funding goes, we've been fortunate to bootstrap ourselves, right? We've every dollar that we get into the company, we turn around and throw it at development because we know that to distinguish ourselves in this market, which is growing very, very fast, we need to have the best product. And if that means no salary for me or Zach or any of the other team members, then so be it. We want to make this the best product possible.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Um, In terms of the product itself, we've seen the waves that generative AI has been doing lately. Any plans on featuring AI to actually help write the emails or the SMS, or even the voicemail drop? You know, there's this software that can reproduce my voice and literally like speak as if I was as if they were Charles at scale. You know, like 1,000 voice drops instead of one. Um, any thoughts on that and where where AI can bring sales?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an exciting time, right? Because I mean, you hit the hammer on the nail head right there. So one of the coolest things we're looking to do once 2.0 launches in the next 3-ish weeks is the next thing we're going after is AI. Take 4 of these developers or 6 of these developers, and they're all going to be R&D. One of the things that I'm personally most excited for is that voicemail drop deep fake. Uh, Currently, we kind of have a good way of getting around the personalized voicemail, but having a personalized voicemail being dropped, that's pretty incredible. Our emails, our LinkedIn, and our SMS already do that AI-driven personalization now. So having voice drops is going to be the next big leap forward.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. On your side as the CRO, how can you recruit sales folks that will be in the green and generate massive dollars for you?
So I think the biggest thing, and this is something we discussed pretty heavily when we had our first EOS meeting, which is just kind of a strategy building meeting, is why are we different? Why is our product different? And how do we want to be different culturally? One of the biggest things is the product in a way sells itself. It just makes sense. We're not reinventing a wheel or anything. It's just a process that streamlines your day to day. So it's a very, very easy sell. So I've worked sales jobs, and I know you have as well, where it's very stressful. You got to meet your quota, you got to do this, you got to do that. So we play with the idea of what if there's no commission, there's just a higher end salary because the product sells itself pretty well. So far, that's proved very advantageous. Our sales reps do enjoy that. Of course, once you enter the enterprise space and the higher mid market space, there's different talks about commission structures and deal closing and things of that nature, but it just allows you as a sales rep to focus on what matters and have that security of the paycheck.
Love it. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go back full circle here and probably retry the pure hourly, no commission base again. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but SDRs nowadays they're only useful, quote unquote, making calls because AI is still not there and automation is still not there. They're because the email sequence are already built, the LinkedIn's already built, it's mostly automated. And yeah, well, I mean, voicemail drops not AI yet, but the phone call themselves, they for ethical and technical reason, yeah, they can't be done yet. So am I wrong here?
No, I think you're spot on. I think maybe in 5 years we'll have a different conversation about this probably. But right now, as it stands, yeah, I mean, having a personal touch in sales because it is so people centric, you can't get away from the phone call. We can't defake the phone call right now, but everything else, you pretty much can.
It's funny that you use the word deep fake. It kind of brings the negative connotation over it. But yeah, we've seen a demo of like Google Duplex, I think it was called, booking uh, a rendezvous at the hair salon. And yeah, using a perfect voice, really sounding human like. What would the sales world and the business world look like in an era where AI can actually make the phone calls?
So when we get to that point in the sales space, I think we're going to be worried about a lot more things. AI is going to replace a lot of kind of menial jobs, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing because it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for other people. AI is not going to replace someone's job forever. They're not going to do nothing for the rest of their lives. What it's going to do is make their time better. Instead of having to spend 4 to 6 hours a day just typing emails and making kind of nonsense phone calls, I can go focus on getting better at marketing or getting better at any other asset of the business that I need to be doing or self-educating.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I certainly think it will be that way short term. It's just a broader question when it comes to, okay, is this AI growing so fast that it's literally replacing new jobs that just have been made because it's that smart? And then who has the ownership over that AI? Because yes, it will create a lot of wealth, but I think to the powerful couple of fews that do have their general artificial intelligence constantly producing wealth, and what if they don't hire folks, which I think is the future of business? It's like 3 humans and 100 AGIs. And I mean, the number won't even mean much because it could be one AGI acting for 1,000. Although it could be different ones, one for finance, one for sales. It will be certainly an interesting world to see, but just not sure. Like, this either may bring a shock to humans, and most folks will wake up and realize that entrepreneurship is the path to take, and they will start their own things, hopefully. But I do think that some people are just genetically not built for that and won't be able to catch up. Although genes don't matter in the future because of epigenetics, you'll be able to modify yourself. But I do think that some folks will choose the serotonin addiction path, and just like stay addicted to video games or porn or all of that for the rest of their lives. And now, is that good or bad? Like, who knows? Maybe it's the best path they could have taken, and I'm going in a very deep and far direction there, but that's what I envision. Any thoughts on that?
You took some of the words out of my mouth. Actually, I was thinking of a response, but yeah, I mean, it's a little bit scary because it could be a very player ready one world where people just choose to be in the metaverse or whatever you want to call it versus in real life. On the flip side, I mean, like, people are going to leave these salary positions where they feel trapped and be forced to think in an entrepreneurial way. And if you think back to, let's say, World War II or just post World War II, we came back from the country in the States here and the economy boomed. People
Yep.
started working, people started businesses, and it was a great time for humanity and the world overall, especially here in the States. So with AI happening, you almost have to think of it like, okay, now these kind of useless jobs, these low level jobs, they get automated. So to provide for yourself, to provide for your family, you're gonna have to find a new way. And I think putting people in uncomfortable positions is crucially important to make them grow. That's why the army was so good for me. It got my head out of my rear end and made me see the world in a different way.
Do you think the end of the Ukraine war will bring an economic boom? Do you think US will get in another war? And let's hope not, but what are your predictions on that?
So that's a really tricky question, right? Because I mean, it's a proxy war at the end of the day, and the question is, should we be there? Should we not be there? I mean, there's 1,000 answers to that. I think it's an important war because we don't know what's going to happen next if we lose. If there's a loss and they go to Poland, then there's a larger scale war. I also like the ideology that the landscape of war has shifted over the human history. It's changed so much, and why would World War One look like World War Two, and why would World War Two look like World War Three? Mass scale operations with two superpower countries doesn't seem feasible because there's missiles, there's drones, there's so much new technology. Having a large force on the ground against another nation with technology, you're just going to be throwing bodies, and we don't want another Stalingrad.
Right. The interesting thing to see, or like I wouldn't use the word interesting, but at least it's gonna alleviate the body count, is that it's gonna be a cyber war. But right now we are not that dependent on technology. I mean, yes, electricity and so forth. The extreme example is like pacemakers that can be controlled through hacking, right? But we're gonna be cyborgs pretty soon, right? With brain computer interfaces and so forth. And it's gonna literally be possible in the future to shut people down just from a hack. So I think the war is taking place now more online, and we've seen Russia interfere with a US election that way. That was kind of a smart move, you must admit. Some are arguing that TikTok is like some kind of Trojan horse as well, from China. It's like a softer war, but yeah, the impact on society is still pretty big, right? When you look at TikTok, you're making people like zombies. They don't care about anything other than being on their phone, or make them like quite polarized about some topics, right? So it will be certainly an interesting landscape. I want to ask you, because we don't have a lot of time there, how do you maintain your own engine productive off work, to make sure that you're hyper productive once you hit the computer?
Yeah, that's a fun question I really like to answer because one thing I learned in the military was being on top of your schedule and building a framework to work around. So I wake up at 6, really get out of bed by 6:15. I go to the gym. That's the first battle of the day. Yeah, well, really, the first battle of the day is making your bed. I wake up, I make my bed, I brush my teeth, I go right to the gym. Then that biggest hurdle is done. I already feel accomplished for the rest of my day, and then I operate off a very segmented schedule calendar, right? So I know what I'm doing when. I break down my days into 30-minute increments, and I just stay motivated by doing that. I like checking things off my to-do list, and it just keeps me honest. And if I look at my whiteboard, which is over here, if I look at it and I see things not checked off with a Monday or a Tuesday next to it, I feel bad for myself because it's my company, it's my business. I'm not hurting anyone but myself.
Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing that value today. Where can people find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, so please check out RevHERO on LinkedIn as well as me on LinkedIn. Christopher Donovan is the full name. Donnie Julio on Instagram, and we'll have an investor newsletter that just came out. So subscribe to that as well if you guys are interested. And Charles, I want to say thank you for the opportunity and for the time today.